Captain Lee Dae-ho stood at attention in the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Horizon. Through the massive windows, he could see Station Harmony 7, floating in the darkness of space. The station was huge, built by a dozen different alien races. Its towers spiraled in ways that human architecture never did. Lights from thousands of windows made it look like a small galaxy. Dae-ho had been to this station many times before. Each visit left a bitter taste in his mouth. He was 42 years old and had served Earth's space forces for 20 years. In all that time, he had watched his people bow and scrape before aliens who treated them like children. Or worse, like servants. "Captain, we're cleared for docking," said his second officer, Lieutenant Kim So-ra. She was young, only 25. But she had sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Ambassador Park's shuttle is already inside." "Good," Dae-ho replied. His hand rested on his sidearm out of habit. The weapon was mostly for show. The Galactic Council had strict rules about what weapons humans could carry on the station. His pistol had been inspected 3 times before they even left Earth. The Horizon moved slowly toward the docking bay. Dae-ho watched other ships coming and going. Valkyrie warships passed nearby, their hulls covered in spikes and symbols of conquest. The Valkyrie were one of the most powerful races in the Council. They had never hidden their contempt for humanity. 200 years had passed since humans first made contact with alien life. Earth's scientists had been so excited. They thought they would join a community of peaceful explorers. Instead, they found something else. The Galactic Council was old, older than human civilization. Its members had divided the galaxy among themselves long ago. Humanity was late to the party, and the Council made sure humans knew it. The treaties started almost immediately. Earth could only colonize certain worlds. Human military forces could only build certain types of ships. Earth had to pay heavy taxes for the privilege of traveling through Council space, which seemed to be everywhere. And humans had to follow rules that other species ignored. Ambassador Park Mi-sun had been fighting against these restrictions for 15 years. She was 60 years old now. With gray hair, she wore proudly. Dae-ho respected her more than anyone in the diplomatic corps. She never gave up. Even when the Council dismissed her concerns, with barely hidden laughter, the Horizon docked smoothly. Dae-ho gathered his security team and headed into the station. The corridors were wide enough for species much larger than humans. The air smelled strange, filtered and recycled through systems designed for a dozen different types of biology. Signs in 50 languages pointed toward the Council chamber. Ambassador Park was waiting near the entrance. She wore formal Earth diplomatic robes, deep blue with silver trim. Her face was calm, but Dae-ho could see tension in her shoulders. "Captain," she greeted him with a small bow. "Thank you for being here." "Of course, Ambassador. Do we know what this emergency session is about?" Park's expression darkened. "Nothing good. The Council has been very quiet lately. When they're quiet, they're planning something." They entered the Council chamber together. The room was enormous, designed to hold representatives from over 300 species. Tiers of seats rose in a circle around a central platform. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing data and translations. The human delegation had exactly 5 seats. Some species had 50. Some had more. Dae-ho and his team stood behind the ambassador's chair. Around them, aliens of every description took their places. Some were humanoid. Others were nothing like human. There were beings made of crystal, creatures that floated in tanks of liquid, and things that hurt to look at directly. The session began with the traditional greetings, spoken in the old Council language. Then, Councillor Vrektar took the central platform. He was Valkyrie, nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and skin like rough stone. His eyes glowed with an orange light. "The Council recognizes the growing issue of human colonial expansion," Vrektar announced. Vrektar announced. Vrektar announced. His voice was deep and carried easily through the chamber. "In the past century, humanity has established 47 colonies beyond their home system. This is deemed excessive. End quote. End quote. End quote. End quote. Ambassador Park stood immediately. Counselor, those colonies were established according to all legal frameworks. Every world was properly surveyed and approved. Silence, Vrektar said flatly. You will speak when recognized. The dismissal was casual, automatic. Deho felt his jaw tighten. Around the chamber, other council members watched with expressions ranging from boredom to amusement. Not one species spoke up for Earth. Vrektar continued. The Council has determined that human colonies beyond the Sol system require better oversight. Therefore, we decree that these colonies will be administratively absorbed by neighboring council governments. This will ensure proper management and cultural development. The words hung in the air like poison. Deho understood immediately what this meant. The council was taking Earth's colonies. All of them. Every world that humans had spent blood and treasure to settle would be handed over to alien control. Ambassador Park's voice was steady, but loud. This is theft. This violates every principle the Council claims to uphold. The decision is made, Vrektar replied. He turned to face Park directly. Humanity has been granted a place in the galaxy through Council generosity. You should be grateful, not defiant. We built those worlds ourselves, and now they will serve a better purpose. Vrektar's expression was almost pitying. Humans are useful servants. Nothing more. Your emotions make you weak. You lack the discipline for true civilization. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Most species seemed to support the decree. A few remained silent. None stood with Earth. Deho's communicator vibrated urgently. He checked it discreetly. The message was, from Admiral Cho Jinwoo, on Earth. Just 3 words. News. From Jeju. His blood went cold. New Jeju was one of humanity's largest colonies, home to 4 million people. It was also strategically located near Velkari territory. He leaned close to Ambassador Park and whispered the news. Her face went pale. Counselor, Park said loudly. Are Velkari warships currently moving toward the New Jeju colony? Vrektar didn't even pretend to be surprised. The transition of authority must begin somewhere. New Jeju will be the first world to experience proper council administration. There are 4 million humans on that world. They will be permitted to stay as residents, under Velkari authority, of course. Ambassador Park looked ready to charge the platform. Deho put a gentle hand on her shoulder. Starting a physical fight here would accomplish nothing except giving the council an excuse for harsher punishment. The session continued for another hour. Every human objection was overruled. Every legal argument was dismissed. The council had decided, and individual species had no power to resist. When it finally ended, Deho escorted Ambassador Park back to the horizon. She said nothing during the walk. Her silence was worse than anger. Once aboard ship, Deho went directly to the secure communications room. He entered his command codes and opened a direct channel to Earth military headquarters. Admiral Cho's face appeared on the screen. The Admiral was 70 years old, with scars from the early days of human space exploration. His expression was granite. Captain Lee, you heard the decree? Yes, sir. This is an act of war. Yes, it is. Cho leaned forward. Captain, I need you to listen very carefully. What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest level. Deho straightened. I'm listening, sir. For 200 years, humanity has been playing a role. We've been the weak species, the compliant newcomers, the servants who know their place. Cho's eyes were hard. It was all a lie. Sir, we've been building, Captain. Building and preparing and studying. Every insult we swallowed, every treaty we signed, every restriction we accepted, we used it all. We learned their weaknesses. We studied their tactics. We prepared for the day they pushed too far. Deho felt something shift in his chest. Hope maybe, or rage, finally given permission to exist. As of this moment, Admiral Cho continued, Protocol Sleeping Dragon is active. The mask is coming off. Humanity is done pretending. The screen flickered and went dark. Dae-ho stood in the communications room, his heart pounding. Outside the window, Station Harmony 7 glittered peacefully. Soon, he thought. Very soon, everything would change. The Valkyrie warship Dominance cut through space toward New Jeju like a predator approaching easy prey. Commander Thekral stood on his bridge, watching the human colony grow larger on the view screens. The planet was beautiful, covered in blue oceans and green continents. Humans had named it after some place on their homeworld. Soon it would have a proper Valkyrie name. All ships report ready, his tactical officer announced. The humans have not raised shields or powered weapons. Of course not, Thekral said with satisfaction. They know their place. The fleet consisted of 20 Valkyrie warships, more than enough to intimidate any resistance. Thekral expected the colony governor to surrender within the hour. Humans always surrendered. They talked bravely in council chambers but folded when actual force appeared. On New Jeju, colony director Bae Sung-ho watched the approaching fleet from his office in New Seoul, the colony's capital city. He was 58 years old, had helped build this colony from nothing, and was not about to give it up without a fight. How long until they reach orbit? He asked his security chief. 30 minutes, sir. And the evacuation? Civilian transports are loading now. Women and children first, as planned. We'll have everyone in the shelter zones within 2 hours. Bae nodded. 2 hours might be too long, but they would do their best. He opened a secure channel to Earth Military Command. This is Director Bae. Valkyrie fleet approaching. Requesting permission to activate defensive protocols. The response came immediately from Admiral Cho himself. Permission granted, Director. Show them what we've been hiding. And Bae, give them hell. Bae allowed himself a small smile. With pleasure, Admiral. Across the colony, hidden systems came online. Defense platforms that had been disguised as communication satellites began rotating into position. Underground hangars opened, revealing fighter craft that no alien had ever seen before. On the planet's surface, what looked like simple mining facilities transformed, their exteriors sliding away to show massive railguns. The Valkyrie fleet crossed into orbital range. Commander Thekral prepared to send his surrender demand. Then his sensors officer shouted in alarm. Commander, weapons lock. Multiple targets painting us. What? From where? Everywhere, sir. The satellites, the surface installations, they're all military grade. Thekral stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Dozens of targeting systems had locked onto his fleet. The power readings were impossible. Those satellites should be simple communications gear, not weapons platforms. His communications panel lit up with an incoming message. A human face appeared on screen. A man in military uniform. The message was simple and cold. This is Director Bae Sung-ho of New Jeju Colony. You have entered sovereign human territory with hostile intent. You have 10 seconds to alter course. If you do not, we will consider it an act of war and respond accordingly. Thekral laughed. Respond? With what? Your people don't have real weapons. The treaties limited what we could show you, Bae interrupted. Not what we could build. 5 seconds. This is a bluff. All ships, prepare to establish orbital positions. Time's up, Bae said simply. Then the transmission ended. New Jeju's defense grid opened fire. The Valkyrie had fought many wars. They knew combat. But what hit them in that moment was beyond their experience. The railguns fired projectiles at incredible speeds, too fast for standard shields to fully deflect. The satellite platforms launched missiles that twisted and turned like living things, evading countermeasures. 3 Valkyrie ships died in the first 30 seconds. Evasive maneuvers! Thekral screamed. Return fire. The Valkyrie fleet scattered, trying to regroup. They fired their energy weapons at the satellites and surface installations. Some were destroyed, but others simply weren't where the sensors said they should be. Human stealth technology was far better than anyone had known. Then Captain Lee Dae-ho arrived with his fleet. The human diplomatic escort that had been at Station Harmony 7 had always seemed small and weak. 5 ships, lightly armed, meant only to look impressive at ceremonies. Now, those ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel right in the middle of the Valkyrie formation, and they were not the same ships anymore. Armor plating fell away, revealing weapon ports. Engine limiters disengaged, and the ships accelerated with shocking speed. What had looked like diplomatic vessels were actually disguised warships, built with human creativity and desperation. All ships, weapons-free. Dae-ho ordered calmly from his command chair. Remember your training. Hit them hard. Hit them fast. And don't give them time to think. The human ships split up, each one targeting a Valkyrie warship. They didn't fight the way Council species fought. There were no formal challenges. No attempts at honorable single combat. Humans fought to win. Dae-ho's ship, the Horizon, locked onto the Dominance. Fire drone swarms, he commanded. Hundreds of small craft launched from the Horizon's bays. They were cheap, expendable, and each one carried enough explosives to cripple a warship. The Valkyrie point defenses tried to shoot them down, but there were too many, moving too erratically. 50 drones made it through. They slammed into the Dominance's hull and detonated. Commander Thekral was thrown from his chair as explosions rocked his ship. Alarms screamed. His tactical display showed 4 ships already destroyed, 6 more heavily damaged. How was this possible? Humans were supposed to be weak. All ships, retreat, he ordered. Fall back to Council space. But the human ships were faster. They pursued the fleeing Valkyrie vessels, striking at engines and weapon systems. It wasn't a battle. It was a hunt. On Earth, Admiral Cho watched the battle unfold in the war room deep beneath military headquarters. Around him, officers monitored hundreds of displays showing naval deployments, troop movements, and intelligence reports. Sir, the Valkyrie fleet at New Jeju is breaking, one officer reported. Captain Lee's forces are in pursuit. Good. What about the other fronts? All proceeding as planned. Ghost Company has infiltrated the Council military base on Praxis Station. Our intelligence networks are feeding us real-time data on Council fleet movements, and the shipyards beyond Neptune are ready to deploy the main fleet. Admiral Cho nodded. Next to him stood Engineer Han Yuna, a woman in her 40s who had spent 20 years designing humanity's secret weapons. She watched the tactical displays with intense focus. It's working, she said quietly. They really didn't know. Why would they? Cho replied. We made sure they saw what we wanted them to see. Weak ships, limited weapons, compliant behavior. They stopped checking decades ago. The truth was simple. While humanity publicly agreed to every restriction, they had secretly built a second military. Shipyards, hidden in the outer solar system. Research stations disguised as mining operations. Weapons programs that used human ingenuity to bypass every treaty limitation. The Galactic Council had made a critical mistake. They had assumed that because humans complied, they were broken. They never imagined that humans were simply patient. Admiral, incoming transmission from Ambassador Park, a communications officer announced. Park's face appeared on the main screen. She was still aboard her shuttle, heading back to Earth. Admiral, the Council is in chaos. Multiple species are demanding explanations. Some are calling for immediate military action against Earth. Let them call, Cho said. By the time they finish arguing, it will be too late. How long until you reach Earth? 6 hours. Good. When you arrive, I'll need you to address the Planetary Council. The people need to understand what's happening. They'll understand, Park said grimly. For 200 years, we've been teaching our children to be patient, to be diplomatic, to turn the other cheek. Now we need to tell them why. The transmission ended. Cho turned back to the tactical displays. At New Jeju, the last Velkari ships were either destroyed or fleeing. Captain Lee was reporting minimal human casualties. Send the broadcast, Cho ordered. Across human space, on every colony and station and ship, the same message appeared. It was Admiral Cho himself, in full dress uniform, speaking directly to both humanity and the galaxy. For 200 years, the Galactic Council has treated humanity as inferior. They limited our growth, taxed our resources, and dismissed our voices. We accepted this because we believed in peace. We hoped that patience and cooperation would earn us respect. Cho's expression hardened. We were wrong. Today, the Council attempted to seize our colonies by force. They believed we would surrender because we always have. They learned differently. Behind him, footage played showing the battle at New Jeju. Valkyrie ships burning. Human defenders standing strong. This is not a war we wanted, Cho continued. But it is a war we prepared for. Every treaty we signed, we studied. Every restriction they placed on us, we worked around. Every insult they gave us, we remembered. He leaned forward, speaking directly into the camera. To the people of Earth and all human colonies, your military has been building in secret for your protection. We are not the weak species the Council believes us to be. We are strong, we are prepared, and we will defend our freedom. Then Cho addressed the galaxy. To the Galactic Council, you wanted to see what happens when humanity stops being polite. You're about to find out. We don't want to destroy you. We want equality. We want respect. And we will have both, one way or another. The broadcast ended. In the war room, Cho sat down heavily. His deputy, General Park Jae-sung, approached. Sir, intelligence reports that 5 Council species are recalling their fleets to defensive positions. They're scared. Good, Cho replied. Fear will make them think, and thinking might make them negotiate. What if they choose to fight instead? Cho looked at the tactical map showing human forces deploying across the galaxy. Then we show them exactly what 200 years of preparation can do. Colonel Shin Bo-ra moved through the darkness of Praxis Station's maintenance tunnels with practiced silence. Behind her, 12 soldiers of Ghost Company followed in single file, their combat suits absorbing light and sound. They had infiltrated the Council's largest military installation 3 days ago, hiding in plain sight while preparing for this moment. Bo-ra was 36 years old and had been training for special operations since she was 18. She had studied every alien species in the Council, learned their languages, understood their psychology. Now all that knowledge would be put to use. Target is 50 meters ahead, whispered Corporal Lee Min-ho through the tactical network. He was their tech specialist, barely 23 but brilliant with computers. 2 guards, standard rotation. Security systems are on a loop. We have a 3-minute window. Copy, Bo-ra replied. On my mark. 3, 2, 1, go. Ghost Company moved like shadows. The 2 alien guards, members of the Thros species with their 4 eyes and tough hides, never knew what hit them. Stun weapons fired in silence. The guards dropped unconscious. Min-ho, open it up, Bo-ra ordered. The young corporal approached the security panel and connected his device. His fingers flew across the holographic interface. This is interesting. They've changed their encryption since our last intelligence update. Someone's getting paranoid. Can you break it? Give me 90 seconds. While Min-ho worked, Bo-ra checked the mission clock. Across the galaxy, human forces were striking at 5 different Council military installations simultaneously. Praxis Station was the biggest prize it housed, the Council's central military database and coordination center. If Ghost Company could access that data, humanity would know every Council ship position, every defensive plan, every strategic secret. Done, Min-ho announced. The door slid open silently. Inside was a large room filled with alien technology. Holographic displays showed star maps and fleet positions. Data streams flowed across screens in languages both familiar and strange. And in the center of it all was the main computer core, a crystalline structure that pulsed with light. "Plant the extraction device," Bo-Ra ordered. "We have 2 minutes before the next guard patrol." Sergeant Kang Hee-jin moved forward with the device. She was 40 years old, tough as steel, and had served in black operations longer than Bo-Ra had been alive. She attached the extraction device to the computer core and activated it. "Download started," Hee-jin reported. "Estimated time, 90 seconds. The team formed a defensive perimeter. Bo-Ra watched the corridor through her helmet's enhanced vision, looking for any sign of trouble. Her weapon was ready, though she hoped not to use it. The mission was to extract data, not start a firefight. Across the galaxy, Intelligence Officer Yang Tae-hyun sat in his office on Earth, monitoring the operation. He was 52 years old, thin and scholarly looking, but his mind was one of humanity's most dangerous weapons. For 30 years, he had been building a spy network throughout Council space. Nobody suspected the quiet human who worked as a cultural liaison. Nobody noticed when he recruited disaffected aliens who disagreed with the Council's policies. Nobody saw the web of informants, hackers, and saboteurs spreading through every Council world. Now that network was activating all at once. Yang watched dozens of screens showing operations across the galaxy. On one screen, a human agent embedded in the Velkari military uploaded false fleet positions to their command system. On another, hackers shut down an orbital defense platform above a Council stronghold world. Everywhere, humanity's hidden pieces moved into position. "Sir, Ghost Company reports successful data extraction," an aide announced. "Excellent. Tell them to proceed to secondary objectives." On Praxis Station, Bo-Ra received the new orders. "Change of plans. We're going after the communication hub." Her team moved deeper into the station. The download device had given them access codes to bypass most security systems. They passed through corridors where aliens of a dozen species worked, never suspecting that humans were among them. The communication hub controlled all military transmissions in this sector. If Ghost Company could sabotage it, Council forces would be blind and deaf for at least 6 hours, long enough for human fleets to strike. They reached the hub without incident. This time, the security was heavier. 6 guards and automated defenses. Bo-Ra signaled her team to hold position. "We need a distraction," she said quietly. "I can do it," volunteered Private Ju Sang-min, their youngest member at 21. He was fresh from training, but had already proven himself creative under pressure. "What's your plan?" Sang-min grinned inside his helmet. "Remember how much these aliens hate hull breaches? I'm thinking we make them think there's one. Sector 7 is mostly empty. I trigger alarms there. They send guards to investigate. We slip in here." Bo-Ra considered it. "Risky, but it might work." "Do it." 3 minutes later, alarms blared through Praxis Station. Alerts showed a hull breach in Sector 7 with pressure loss. The communication hub's defenses stayed active, but now there were only 2 guards instead of 6. Ghost Company moved in fast. The remaining guards went down under stun fire. Min-ho got to work on the hub's systems, while the rest of the team secured the room. "This is beautiful," Min-ho said, studying the alien technology. "I can't just shut it down. I can reprogram it. Make them think they're receiving accurate reports when they're actually getting garbage data." "How long?" 4 minutes. "Do it. The rest of you, watch our backs." As Min-ho worked, Bo-Ra thought about what this war meant. She had grown up hearing stories of the Galactic Council's arrogance. Her grandmother had been part of the first human delegation to meet alien species. She remembered her grandmother's tears when she described how the Council had laughed at humanity's hopes for partnership. Now humanity was laughing back, with weapons and strategy instead of words. Meanwhile, Captain Lee Dae-ho's fleet had finished with the Velkari forces at New Jeju and was moving to its next target. His ships traveled through the darkness between stars, running silent to avoid detection. In his command chair, Dae-ho reviewed intelligence reports from Yang's network. Council forces were scrambling to respond to attacks across multiple sectors. They were confused, disorganized, fighting an enemy they had never taken seriously. "Captain, we're approaching the Velkari fuel depot at Kresh Station," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Kim So-ra. "What are the defenses?" "Lighter than expected. Looks like they pulled ships away to reinforce their core worlds." Dae-ho smiled without humor. "Then they left us a gift. All ships, prepare for attack run. Target their fuel storage tanks first. I want that station unable to support any military operations." The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel right on top of Kresh Station. The Velkari defenders had barely enough time to activate shields before human weapons opened fire. But this time, Dae-ho's forces didn't use conventional weapons. They used something. Engineer Han Yuna's team had developed plasma missiles that burned through energy shields like they weren't there. The Velkari had never seen anything like them. "All missiles away," So-ra reported. "Impact in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The fuel depot exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the system. Secondary explosions rippled through the station as one tank after another went up. Within minutes, Kresh Station was a burning ruin. "Any survivors?" Dae-ho asked, reading evacuation pods. "About 200, Velkari got out. Leave them. Send a general broadcast on council frequencies. I want everyone to hear this." Dae-ho stood up, straightening his uniform. The communications officer activated the recorder. When Dae-ho spoke, his voice was calm but hard as iron. "This is Captain Lee Dae-ho of Earth's Defense Forces. For 200 years, the Galactic Council treated humanity like servants. You restricted our growth. You taxed our resources. You insulted our people. You thought we were weak because we didn't fight back." He paused, letting the burning station fill the screen behind him. "You were wrong. We weren't weak. We were preparing. Every treaty you forced on us, we studied for loopholes. Every restriction you placed, we worked around. Every time you pushed us down, we learned to push back harder." The camera zoomed in on his face. "This war started when you tried to take our colonies, but it won't end until you understand one simple truth. Humanity demands equality. We will accept nothing less. You can negotiate with us as equals, or you can fight us and lose. The choice is yours." The broadcast ended. Across council space, billions of aliens watched footage of human forces striking at targets once thought untouchable. For the first time in thousands of years, the council felt genuine fear. Back on Praxis Station, Ghost Company finished their mission. Min-ho had successfully corrupted the communication hub's systems. Now every council commander in this sector would receive false information, sending them chasing phantom threats while human forces struck their real targets. "Extraction time," Bo-ra announced. "Same route we came in. Stay tight and stay quiet." The team moved back through the maintenance tunnels. They passed unconscious guards and bypassed security systems, leaving no trace they had ever been there. Within 20 minutes, they were back at their hidden insertion point. A small stealth ship waited, invisible to the station's sensors. Ghost Company boarded quickly. As they pulled away from Praxis Station, Bo-ra allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. "Mission accomplished," she reported to Earth Command. "Database extracted. Communication hub compromised. Praxis Station is blind." Yang Tae-hyun received the report with a nod. On his tactical map, he could see the whole picture of humanity's offensive. Ghost Company was just one piece. Dozens of other operations were succeeding across council space. Sleeper agents were sabotaging weapons factories. Hackers were stealing battle plans. Human fleets were hitting military targets with precision that came from 200 years of careful intelligence gathering. The council had never imagined this was possible. They had grown comfortable, certain of their superiority. They forgot that the most dangerous enemy is the one you underestimate. Admiral Cho entered Yang's office, studying the same tactical map. The Council is calling for an emergency session. They want to discuss peace terms. Lugger 4. Lugger 4. Already? Yang was surprised. We've only been fighting for 3 days. We've destroyed or crippled 30% of their military assets in 3 days, Cho corrected. And they know we're just getting started. The main fleet hasn't even deployed yet. Yang allowed himself a small smile. What are we telling them? Nothing yet, Cho replied. Let them sweat. Let them wonder what else we have hidden. Fear is as powerful as any weapon. And if they refuse to negotiate? Admiral Cho's expression hardened. Then we show them what 200 years of human patience was really building toward. The council chamber on Station Harmony 7 was chaos. Representatives from 300 species shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Holographic displays showed burning stations, destroyed fleets, and strategic maps covered in red indicators marking human attacks. Prime Counselor Exithana sat in her central seat, 400 years old, and feeling every one of those years. She was Verath, a species known for wisdom and long memory. She had led the council for 70 years and had never seen it this fractured. Order! She called out, her voice amplified through the chamber. The shouting continued. Counselor Vrektar stood at his station, his forearms gesturing angrily. The humans must be crushed. Their insolence cannot stand. We should deploy the full council fleet and turn their homeworld to glass. And lose half our forces in the attempt? Challenged Counselor Mara of the Thros. Have you seen the reports? They destroyed the Velkari fleet at New Jeju with minimal losses. They sabotaged Praxis Station without being detected. They have weapons we've never encountered. Tricks and deception, Vrektar growled. When faced with our combined might. Your combined might is scattered and confused, interrupted Counselor Hesh of the Kalos Collective. My species has lost contact with 3 military installations. 3. In as many days, Zethana watched the argument spiral. She had reviewed the intelligence reports personally. What she read had shaken her deeply. Humanity had been preparing for this war for 2 centuries. Every treaty violation the Council had ignored, every restriction humanity had seemed to accept, all of it had been part of a long game. Counselors, she said quietly. The chamber gradually fell silent. We must face an uncomfortable truth. We underestimated humanity. They are primitives, Vrektar protested. Primitives who just crippled 30% of our military capacity in 3 days, Exethana replied coldly. Primitives who infiltrated our most secure installations. Primitives who built a fleet we knew nothing about. She pulled up a holographic display showing human ship designs. Look at these vessels. They don't follow our engineering principles. They use strategies we never taught them. They fight with a creativity we didn't expect. A smaller counselor, representative of the peaceful Yenri species, spoke up nervously. Prime Counselor, my government wishes to open negotiations with Earth. We see no reason to continue this conflict. Betrayal. Vrektar roared. The Council acts as one or not at all. The Council acts for survival. The Yenri representative shot back. My species has no quarrel with humanity. We will not sacrifice our people for Velkari pride. More voices joined in support. The council was fracturing before Zethana's eyes. She had to act. Silence. The word echoed through the chamber. I am calling a recess. We will reconvene in 6 hours. In that time, I expect every counselor to review the full intelligence reports and consider our position carefully. As the chamber emptied, Zethana remained in her seat. Her aide approached cautiously. Prime Counselor, there is a private communication waiting for you. From Earth. Who? Admiral Cho Jin-woo, commander of human forces. Zethana was surprised but intrigued. Put it through to my private office. In the secure office, she activated the communication terminal. Admiral Cho's weathered face appeared on the screen. He looked tired, but determined. Prime Counselor Zethana, he greeted formally. Thank you for taking this call. Admiral, I assume you're calling to offer surrender terms? Cho's expression didn't change. You assume incorrectly. I'm calling to offer you a chance to negotiate before this war escalates further. Escalates? You've already attacked dozens of installations. Surgical strikes on military targets, Cho corrected. We've been very careful to minimize civilian casualties. We could have done far worse. Zethana felt a chill. What do you mean? Cho leaned forward. Prime Counselor. Humanity has developed weapons that could make entire planets uninhabitable. Weapons that could destroy stations like Harmony. 7 inches minutes. We haven't used them because we don't want to be monsters. But make no mistake, if the Council forces us to choose between our freedom and our mercy, we will choose freedom. You're threatening genocide? I'm stating facts. You need to understand what humanity has become. We're not the weak species you remember from 2 centuries ago. We're not even the same species we were 3 days ago. You pushed us until we couldn't be pushed anymore. Zethana studied the human admiral's face. She saw no anger there. Only grim determination. What do you want? Summa. End of the quarter. 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 Equality. Full sovereignty over our colonies. Fair representation in the Council. And an end to the restrictions that have held us back for 200 years. The Council will never agree to. The Council is already fracturing, Cho interrupted. Several species want to negotiate separately. Others are pulling their fleets back to defensive positions. You don't have unified support anymore. And you know it. He was right. Zethana sat back in her chair. Even if I wanted to negotiate, Counselor Vrektar and his faction would never accept it. Then you have a choice to make, Prime Counselor. You can continue this war and watch the Council destroy itself from within. Or you can be the leader who brings peace. The transmission ended. Zethana sat alone in her office, feeling the weight of centuries on her shoulders. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Captain Ryu G1 commanded a small human fleet approaching the Council world of Thessa. She was only 29 years old, but had proven herself in the battle at New Jeju. Admiral Cho had given her a difficult mission. Captain, sensors show a large civilian convoy departing from Thessa, reported her tactical officer. Looks like refugees. Mostly Thros civilians, with some mixed species. G1 studied the sensor readings. The convoy consisted of transport ships with minimal defenses. They weren't military targets. But her orders were to prevent any ships from leaving Council worlds until negotiations began. Ma'am, should we engage? Her weapons officer asked. G1 felt her crew watching her. She thought about everything Earth had suffered. The insults, the restrictions, the seizure of colonies. It would be easy to claim these transports might carry military personnel, easy to strike and continue the cycle of violence. No, she said firmly. Let them pass. But ma'am, I said let them pass, hailed the convoy leader. A Thros face appeared on screen, looking terrified. Please, we are only civilians. We have children aboard. I can see that, G1 replied. You're free to go. We're at war with the Council's military forces, not with civilians. Safe travels. The relief on the Thros commander's face was obvious. As the convoy moved away, G1's communications officer looked troubled. Captain, some of the crew think we should have at least stopped them for inspection. Probably, G1 admitted. But I want those refugees to go back to Council space and tell everyone what happened. I want them to know that humanity could have killed them, but chose not to. Sometimes mercy is the most powerful weapon. She activated a recorder. Send this on all Council frequencies. When the red light indicated recording, G1 spoke clearly. This is Captain Ryu G1 of Earth Forces. A civilian convoy just passed through our blockade safely. We let them go because we're not at war with civilians. We're not monsters. We're just people who are tired of being treated as less than equals." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "We didn't want this war. We spent 200 years trying to find peace. But every time we reached out, you pushed us down. Every time we tried to negotiate, you dismissed us. You left us no choice but to fight." Her expression hardened. "But even in war, we remember who we are. We're not going to commit atrocities. We're not going to target civilians. We're better than that. The question is, are you?" The broadcast ended. Within hours, it spread across council space. Some dismissed it as propaganda. Others began to question what they had been told about humanity. On Earth, Dr. Oh Hyun-woo stood in a secure laboratory deep underground. He was 65 years old, had 3 doctoral degrees, and had just completed humanity's most terrible weapon. "Are you sure about this?" asked his assistant, a young researcher named Park Soo-ji. Hyun-woo looked at the device on the lab table. It was small, almost innocent-looking, but it contained enough engineered bacteria to render a planet's atmosphere toxic to most known forms of life. It was humanity's ultimate deterrent. "I've never been less sure of anything," he admitted. "But Admiral Cho needs to be able to make credible threats. If the Council thinks we're bluffing, they'll push harder and more people will die." Suji finished. "I understand. But do we really want to become the kind of species that builds weapons like this? We already are that species. We've always been. The question is whether we use them." Hyun-woo uploaded the final designs to Admiral Cho's personal files. Along with them, he sent a message. "The ultimate weapon is ready. But I beg you, Admiral, find another way." In the Earth Defense Command Center, Cho received the message and sat in silence for a long moment. Around him, officers coordinated fleet movements and analyzed battle reports. The war was going well, but casualties were mounting on both sides. His aide approached quietly. "Sir, we're receiving reports that several Council species are opening back-channel communications. They want to negotiate separately. Names? The Thros Confederation, the Yenri Alliance, and the Kalos Collective. Together they represent about 40% of Council military forces. The Tenebi, Rending, the Thros Confederation." Cho nodded slowly. "And Vrektar's faction? Still demanding total war, but they're increasingly isolated. What about Prime Counselor Zethana?" "Unknown, sir. She's called for another council session in 3 hours." Cho stood and walked to the observation window. Outside, Earth turned peacefully in the void. Ships came and went from orbital stations. Life continued, despite the war, raging across the galaxy. "Get me a secure channel to Captain Lee," he ordered. Daeho's face appeared on a screen moments later. He looked tired but alert. His fleet was positioned near a critical Council supply route. "Admiral Daeho, I'm sending you new orders. Stand down. Offensive operations. But maintain your position. We're going to give the Council one more chance to negotiate." "Sir?" "If we press now, we might win the war but lose ourselves," Cho interrupted. "I've seen too many wars, Captain. I know how easy it is to justify one more strike, one more attack, one more push, until you've become the monster you set out to fight." He paused. "We didn't start this war to destroy the Council. We started it to earn respect. Captain Ryu showed mercy to civilian refugees today. That single act might do more to win this war than a dozen military victories." Daeho was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "Understood, sir. Standing by for negotiations." "Good man." In the council chamber, Zethana returned to her seat. The councilors filed back in, but the atmosphere had changed. The shouting had stopped. In its place was uncertainty and something that looked like fear. Counselors, Zethana began, I have reviewed all available intelligence. I have also spoken with Admiral Cho of Earth Forces. It is clear to me that continuing this war will destroy the Council more certainly than any human weapon. Vrektar stood immediately. You would surrender? I would negotiate. There is a difference. She met his angry gaze calmly. Humanity has proven it can hurt us badly. But they've also shown restraint. They spared civilian refugees. They target military installations while minimizing casualties. They fight like soldiers, not murderers. They are equals, Exathana said firmly. They have always been equals. We were simply too arrogant to see it. 3 months had passed since the last shots were fired. Station Harmony 7 had been partially rebuilt after taking damage in the final days of the war. Now it hosted the most important gathering in galactic history, a peace conference that would reshape the entire council. Captain Lee Dae-ho stood in the observation deck where this had all begun. He wore his dress uniform, but the weight on his shoulders came from responsibility, not rank. In an hour, he would be formally appointed as the first Joint Defense Commander, a new position created to oversee combined human and council military forces. Nervous? Asked a familiar voice. He turned to see Ambassador Park Mi-sun approaching. She looked different now, stronger, more confident. The woman who had been dismissed and humiliated in this very station now served as chair of the reformed Galactic Council. Terrified, Dae-ho admitted. I'm a soldier, not a politician. I know how to fight. Making peace is harder. Park stood beside him, looking out at the stars. Do you remember that day? When Vrektar told us we were nothing but servants? I remember wanting to shoot him. So did I. She smiled sadly. But if we had, we would have proven him right. Instead, we proved something else. We proved that patience isn't weakness. That choosing the hard path can lead somewhere better. Down in the main conference hall, representatives from hundreds of species gathered. The room had been redesigned. No longer did some species have elevated seats, while others sat below. Now everyone was equal, arranged in a circle where all could see and be seen. Admiral Cho Jin-woo entered the hall with his delegation. He was officially retiring after today's ceremony, turning over command to younger officers. But his legacy would shape humanity's future for generations. He took his seat next to Engineer Han Yuna, who had been awarded the Council's highest civilian honor for her contributions to defensive technology. On his other side sat Intelligence Officer Yang Tae-hyun, who would continue coordinating human intelligence operations now openly as part of the Council's shared security network. Prime Counselor Exethana called the assembly to order. We gather today to formalize the peace accords that ended the shortest and most devastating war in Council history, a war that should never have happened. She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. For 200 years, this council treated humanity as inferior. We restricted their growth. We dismissed their concerns. We believed ourselves wiser simply because we were older. Her ancient eyes swept the room. We were fools. Murmurs spread through the assembly. Zethana raised a hand for silence. Yes, fools. Because we forgot that wisdom isn't about age or power. It's about recognizing truth. And the truth is that humanity earned their place among the stars through their own merit, not our permission. She gestured to Ambassador Park. I yield the floor to the new council chair. Park stood, moving to the central platform. She had prepared a long speech, but standing there, she felt different words coming. 3 months ago, we were killing each other, she began simply. Humans and council forces fighting a war that wasted lives and resources, a war that started because one side demanded respect and the other refused to give it. She looked around the room. But something interesting happened during that war. Humanity showed restraint when we could have shown cruelty. We chose mercy when vengeance would have been easier. And some of you, she nodded to several alien delegates, had the courage to break with the council majority and seek peace. Park's voice grew stronger. Today we sign accords that guarantee human sovereignty, full representation in council decisions, fair treatment under all laws. These things we should have had from the beginning. She paused. But we also commit to something more. A new council. Where no species is considered inferior. Where every voice matters. Where we judge each other by our actions, not our age or our power. In the audience, Captain Ryuji-1 watched with pride. She was part of the Earth delegation, wearing the medals she had earned during the war. Next to her sat General Thonrex of the Velkari, who had fought against her at New Jeju. Your captain made quite an impression, Thonrex said quietly. That mercy she showed to the refugees. It changed minds. G1 glanced at the large alien warrior. You fought well too. With honor. I fought by the rules I knew. You taught me there are other ways. He paused. Better ways. The ceremony continued. One by one, species representatives came forward to sign the new accords. Some did so eagerly, others reluctantly, but all of them signed. When Councillor Vrektar's turn came, the hall fell silent. The proud Velkari had been stripped of much of his authority, his species forced to pay reparations for starting the war. He approached the signing platform with heavy steps. Councillor Vrektar, Park said formally, do you sign these accords on behalf of the Velkari Empire? For a long moment, he simply stood there. Then he spoke, his voice heavy with emotion. I was wrong. About humans. About everything. He looked at Park directly. I said your emotions made you weak. But it was my pride that was weakness. My refusal to see you as equals. That was true weakness. He signed the document. The Velkari Empire agrees to these terms. And we pledge to rebuild what we destroyed. In the audience, Admiral Cho felt something release in his chest. Vindication, perhaps, or simply relief that it was finally over. After the signing ceremony, there was a reception where species mingled freely. Dae-ho found himself talking to Prime Counselor X-8th Anna. Captain, or should I say Commander Lee, she greeted him. Are you ready for your new role? As ready as I'll ever be. Though I'll admit, working alongside former enemies will take adjustment. For everyone, Zethana agreed. She looked around the room. You know, I've lived 400 years. I've seen empires rise and fall. But I've never seen a transformation like this. Transformation? Humanity transformed this entire galaxy in 3 months. Not through conquest, but through demonstration. You showed us what we could be if we had your courage, your creativity, your refusal to accept injustice. Dae-ho was uncomfortable with the praise. We just wanted respect, and in earning it, you gave us something more valuable. You gave us a mirror to see our own failures. Zethana placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Use that wisdom well in your new position. Remember that strength is not just about weapons. It's about knowing when to fight and when to forgive. Later, Dae-ho walked through New Jeju Colony's Memorial Plaza with his daughter, Lee Ha-yoon. She was only 8 years old, but had lived through the war. The plaza contained a wall with names of all those who had died, human and alien both. Papa, Ha-yoon asked, are we the bad guys? Dae-ho knelt to her level. Why do you ask that? Because we hurt a lot of people. Teacher said war is bad. But you were in the war. 1. When Prussa die. When Prussa die with Minnie, he thought carefully about his answer. We were in a bad situation, sweetheart. For a long time, people treated us unfairly. We tried to fix it peacefully, but they wouldn't listen. So we had to show them we were strong. By hurting them, by defending ourselves. There's a difference. He pointed to the memorial wall. We remember everyone who died, not just humans. Because we don't celebrate death. We celebrate freedom and respect. Ha-yoon looked at the names thoughtfully. So we're not bad guys or good guys? We're just people who tried our best in a difficult time. Sometimes you have to be strong, but you should also try to be kind. He touched her cheek gently. The strongest thing we did wasn't winning the war. It was choosing to make peace after we could have kept fighting. That evening, the human delegation gathered privately in Ambassador Park's quarters. It was a small group. Park, Admiral Cho, Dae-ho, Colonel Shin Bo-ra from Ghost Company, Engineer Han Yuna, and a few others who had shaped humanity's strategy. To the end of the war, Park raised her glass. And to all who served, Cho added. They drank in silence for a moment. Then Bo-ra spoke up. What happens now? We spent 200 years preparing for that war. What do we prepare for now? Peace, Park answered. Which is harder than war in many ways. We have to rebuild trust. Work alongside former enemies. Prove that we're not just good at fighting, but good at cooperating. Some species will never trust us, Yuna pointed out. They'll always see us as dangerous. Let them, Cho said. Let them remember what happens when they push too far. But let them also remember the mercy Captain Ryu showed. The restraint we demonstrated. Give them both sides of humanity and let them choose which one they want to deal with. Dae-ho nodded thoughtfully. It's like training for martial arts. You learn to fight, not so you can hurt people, but so you never have to. Everyone knows you could, so they think twice about challenging you. Exactly, Park agreed. We're still the humans who built a secret fleet and defeated Council forces, but we're also the humans who chose peace when we could have chosen destruction. That's the reputation we need to maintain. As the evening went on, they talked about the future. New colonies to build, technology to share, young people from different species learning together. It wouldn't be easy. Old prejudices would take time to fade. But it was possible now, in ways it hadn't been before. The next morning, Dae-ho officially took command of the Joint Defense Forces in a ceremony attended by representatives from 50 species. He stood at attention while Prime Counselor Zethana read the formal decree. Captain Lee Dae-ho has demonstrated exceptional leadership, tactical skill, and most importantly, wisdom in knowing when force is necessary and when mercy is stronger. Therefore, we appoint him as the first Joint Defense Commander, charged with protecting all Council species and ensuring no single species is ever treated as inferior again. Dae-ho accepted the position with a formal bow. I accept this responsibility with humility. I will protect all species under Council jurisdiction without favoritism. But I also make this promise. If any species attempts to oppress another the way humanity was oppressed, they will face the same response we gave. Strength must serve justice, not pride. In the audience, young officers from a dozen species watched with new respect. Among them was a Valkyrie cadet named Krellex, who would later say that watching Dae-ho's ceremony inspired him to join the Joint Defense Forces himself. Years later, a historian would interview Ambassador Park about those critical months. What was the most important lesson from the war? The historian asked. Park thought for a long moment. That patience and strength aren't opposites. We were patient for 200 years, but we were also preparing. When the time came, we were ready. But what really mattered was that we never lost our humanity in the process. What do you mean? We could have been monsters. We had the weapons. We had the justification. Every species in the galaxy would have understood if we'd taken revenge for 2 centuries of oppression. Park's eyes grew distant. But we chose to be better. We remembered that our goal wasn't to destroy the Council. It was to earn our place in it, as equals. Do you think the war was necessary? Yes and no. The Council needed to see our strength, but the peace required them to see our wisdom. One without the other wouldn't have worked. The historian made notes, then asked one final question. What do you want future generations to remember about this time? Our note. Park smiled. I want them to remember that their ancestors were strong enough to fight, but wise enough to forgive. That we became equals not through cruelty but through courage, and that the galaxy is better because humanity finally stopped accepting less than we deserved. As the interview ended, Park looked out her window at Earth turning below. Somewhere on that planet, Children were learning the history of the war. They would learn about battles and strategies, but she hoped they would also learn the deeper lesson. Respect isn't given freely. It must be earned. But once earned through strength, it must be maintained through wisdom. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not just the knowledge that they could fight, but the demonstration that they knew when to stop fighting. The galaxy had finally learned what humanity had always known: that the most dangerous enemies aren't the ones who attack immediately. They're the ones patient enough to wait, strong enough to prepare, and wise enough to know that victory without mercy is just another form of defeat. And so the new era began. Not with humanity ruling over others, but with humanity standing alongside them. Equal partners in a galaxy that had finally learned to value truth over tradition, respect over hierarchy, and justice over pride. The long patience had ended. The fury had been unleashed, and then carefully contained. And in that balance between strength and restraint, humanity had found its true place among the stars. Not as servants, not as conquerors, but as equals who had earned their seat at the table through the hardest of lessons, teaching others that underestimating patience is the gravest mistake any empire can make.